Northwest UFO Paranormal Conference, and we're continuing to have our remote journey with speakers from the conference. And my guest now is Roger Leir. And previously you have seen footage of surgery removing what has been called alien implants, and we're going to explore that on this journey right now. Roger, thank you so much for taking some time to come and talk to us about what you've been doing over the years.
Well, it's a real pleasure for me to be here and talk to you about it.
Tell me why and how you got even involved in something as bizarre as taking out and studying alien implants.
I know, I've thought about that retrospectively.
I bet. Right. Well, I think about asking these questions as well.
Yeah, it's been quite a trip. I actually started out as the consummate scientific skeptic. I didn't really believe there was such a thing as implants. I've always been interested in UFOs and became interested in alien abduction. I became a member of MUFON in a local Santa Barbara, Ventura area. And in those days, I was a writer for a periodical called The Vortex, and I was acting sort of in a capacity of an investigative reporter when I met an individual, a researcher, who showed me some x-rays of a foot, and that's what I do, is foot surgery. And he showed me these x-rays, and it asked me to look at a couple of objects in the big toe of the left foot, which appeared to be metallic, and touted them as being alien implants, which I thought was utter nonsense. So I offered to take them out, and he asked me if I was serious, and I said yes, and he says, well, I might take you up on it. And I said, where does the patient? He says, well, the patient lives in Texas. So I said, well, I'll tell you, I'll make a deal. You get the patient to California, and I'll do the surgery for no charge.
Well, big of you.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Your curiosity, I'm sure, might have.
But I set out to prove that this wasn't anything. I mean, actually, these objects looked like many of the little remnants from metallic devices that we put into a foot following a bone surgery.
Okay, that was, by the way, the first Journey show I've ever had to put a little disclaimer out front, because if anyone has a queasiness to what, because we showed the surgery that you performed.
That's I usually address that issue when I do my presentations. So I tell everybody, if they see something there that bothers them, just to look away, and she'll all disappear.
Well, and it showed taking out a little tiny metallic object. And so, what did you discover after that?
Well, we did incidentally, we did 2 surgeries on that same day, because there was a gentleman who had an object in the back of the hand, and I was able to get a general surgeon friend of mine to do that at the same time. So what we wound up is removing 2 objects from the big toe of the lady and 1 from the back of the hand of the gentleman. So that was our first 3 objects, and right from the get-go we had things that weren't very usual. There was pain when there wasn't supposed to be any pain. There was extreme psychological effects where there shouldn't have been any. We had to set up a strict set of criteria and protocols to do these, because whatever I was doing, I wanted to do it in the most scientific way possible.
Keep the records.
Yeah, so I could prove that these were nothing but nothings. So even to do that, you have to have a good record. And so these were videotaped. We had eyewitnesses. We had 2 professional writers that were there, and a still photographer. So it was very well documented. And when the analyses started to come back, that was the second set of surprises. So now, to date, you probably want to know.
Let's go for it, because that was back, and let's refresh everyone's
That was
memory.
August, exactly, August the 19th of 1995.
Okay, it's been a while. So now, moving forward.
Right, to date, I've done, a surgical team, let's put it that way, has done 9 surgeries, and the 9 surgeries has produced 10 objects. All of these objects except 1 have been of scientific interest.
Of scientific interest, meaning anomalous or?
Yeah, with a number of anomalies. You might divide the objects up synthetically into metallic and non-metallic groups. We have 3 that are non-metallic. They're little grayish-white balls about the size of a BB. And they are usually attached to an abnormality of the skin found in alien abductees, which occurs overnight, and these are called scoop marks. And incidentally, these lesions of the skin don't appear in medical textbooks. These are kind of a separate bag of lesions that are associated with this phenomena, and they are not in medical books. I found that also very interesting. But the majority of our information and analysis is on the metal objects, and the metallic objects are covered with this very strange, dark, well-organized, gray, shiny, and for the lack of a better word, membrane. A membrane that you can't cut through with a surgical blade. Now, a surgical blade is very sharp. You can sometimes even whittle a bone with one, either inadvertently or on purpose. We hope not inadvertently. So not to be able to cut through these things is just absolutely amazing. But to make a long story short, what we found is that some of these metallic objects, amongst other things, contain isotopic ratios, and that's the ratio of the isotopes that make up a particular element. For example, as far as the audience is concerned, we all know uranium. You know, we like to make A-bombs out of U-235. Well, U-235 represents the number of protons that are in the nucleus of the atom, but there's also U-234. Or U-236. So when you dig up, you know, when you mine a piece of uranium, you find, well, there's so much 236, so much 234, and so much 235. And there's a ratio that's pretty standard between those isotopes, no matter where you mine that particular element anywhere on Earth. But if should you mine it coming from the moon or from an asteroid and look at those ratios might be different, but it's still uranium. So we could find a piece of iron, for example, but if we looked at the ratios in these things, we'd find they would be non-earthly ratios. And that's sort of strange coming from a person who alleges that they've been abducted by aliens.
So what are they metallic? Do they have iron or silicon or anything that's normal as part of it, or is the whole isotopic range abnormal?
Well, in the elements that are represented, looking at the main elements, the ones that are the main elements show isotopic ratios that are non-earthly. Some of the other elements are the same as what we find here on Earth. And so what we've come to the conclusion is that this is a form of nanotechnology, and it's a very advanced form of nanotechnology, which we are just learning about ourselves now.
Now, what areas of the body, because one was in the back of a man, one was in the woman's big toe, and these other 9 surgeries, whereabouts are they?
Okay, we've had 2 from the hands or wrist area, thumb. We've had 2 from feet. We've had 1 from the lower jaw. We've had 1 from the back of the neck and 2 from the front of legs, all from the left side of the body.
Can you surmise anything from that?
No, and I really don't want to, because I don't feel that the 9 cases represents a number where you can make a generality. If we did 100 cases and they were all from the left side of the body, then I'd say, okay, we're on to something.
Even the various parts of the body, those are varying to such a degree too. You know, you weren't, you know.
That's right, and so, but you could draw some conclusion from that. You know, if you find them in those kind of places, they're kind of easy places to get to. You know, we haven't found any in the abdomen or in the thorax or inside the brain or someplace else. So these are, let's say somebody put these in, you know, I mean, it seems like they're easy places to put them in. Also, there's a lot of strangeness that surrounds this, because all the metallic objects, there's no interference of the skin. There's no scar. There's no portal of entry. How did they get in there?
Yes, and how do even the people know that they're there in a particular location?
Well, that's a good question. Some know because accidents have occurred and incidental x-rays are taken, and the x-ray shows this object. The last case that I did last year, that was the case. He was a cement contractor in a very small town in Yuma, Colorado. And he had hit his finger with a hammer and went to the emergency room because he thought he broke his finger. And the doctor took an x-ray and looked at it and said, no, it looks like you're okay. You didn't break your finger, but where'd you get this piece of metal that's in your hand?
You know, just recently a friend of mine had developed a limp, just a soreness in her foot. And, you know, she finally got around to getting an x-rayed, and he says, well, it looks like at some point in your life you probably stepped on a nail. Did you never get it out of your foot? So, I mean, there's something just, you know, from one of my friends just telling me that happened.
Well, we should talk to her and see if there's some relation, if she's had any relation to this field.
And I need to know, I want to follow up to see if she's gone any further to try and get it out, because like I said, she's limping now. It's over
well, she should not,
over the time.
She should not get it out unless she talks to me if it's related to this phenomena.
But you're saying that's how they're finding these strange.
That's right.
It's just, something happened, or, you know.
Yeah. But, you know, if someone has no relation to this phenomenon, if they've never seen a UFO, if they've never had a strange dream, never had missing time, never had marks on their body, and is just a person who...
She's one of my camera people, so she's been pretty related to this field for 10 years now.
That's interesting. Well, we should follow through.
We definitely will. As a matter of fact, she knew Elizabeth Clare over in South Africa, who was... one that had early contact back in the late 50s. So
well,
I mean, that was her very close friend that she's hung out with.
Yeah, well, then there's a good possibility. So
we'll get in touch.
Yeah, get an x-ray and look at her.
So, do most of these people have any kind of remembrances of strange dreams or seeing UFOs?
In order to fulfill the protocols and criteria for my program, they must have some kind of a conscious memory of at least seeing a UFO. We don't encourage them to go out and get any kind of hypnotic regression prior to the surgeries, and that's purely because of the scientific project. We don't want any criticism because the hypnotist suggested something to them. It's okay afterwards, and we've had some that were regressed, and the regressions are very, very interesting. But we don't encourage that. In fact, if they've had hypnosis before, we really kind of push them aside and try and not do the surgery.
What are your ideas as to what they're doing? Tracking devices, monitoring our nervous system or circulatory system, or just, like you said, nanotechnology.
Yeah. But you know, if you do this scientifically, we have to look at it in sort of kind of a scientific manner. And science will allow you to put forth theories, but they're theories only, unless you take them into a laboratory and you either prove them or disprove them. One of the popular theories is that they're tracking devices. Another popular theory is that they're behavior modification devices, because we know that by and large the normal, if you use the word normal, abductee population sort of has compulsive behaviors. They could get up in the middle of the night, take their family out for a ride, have some kind of a sighting or something going on, or other such things. So they could be behavior modification devices, or they could be chemical detection devices. We all remember John Glenn in his recent Sorry into Space complained on national television that he had to swallow implants, because Mission Control had to modern certain physiologic functions that they wanted to look at. So those are just the same kind of devices. They're monitoring something in your body. So they could be chemical detection devices. The fourth is the one that I probably agree with the most, and that is, I believe these can be genetic monitoring devices. I believe that the whole human race is undergoing and has been undergoing for maybe thousands of years genetic manipulation, maybe even since the beginning. And I think this is quite evidenced in the babies that have been born within the least 40 years are not the same human beings. So if we look at implants in that light, they could be devices for detecting genetic change.
Or in any way creating any kind of genetic change, or just
I don't think so. I think that that the genetic manipulation is one of the possible reasons that abduction phenomena exists. I believe that the human race is being, genetically manipulated. If you look at what abductees tell you, the abductee population will always tell you something about, the experimentation that goes on, ova and sperm, ova and sperm, ova and sperm. Well, what are they doing?
And sometimes across generations.
Yes.
I've spoken with, a woman who her mother and her grandmother all related the same kind of story.
Yes, so. Absolutely. And then if we look back into Zachariah Sitchin's work with his interpretation of the Sumerian tablets, which are 6,000 years old, and one of the earliest civilizations, you look in there and you find the DNA change, the double helix DNA change. We didn't know what it was till we found out. So if they knew something about genetics, then it's a very good possibility that we could be creatures that were sort of created.
Well, and other speakers here at this conference certainly have been talking about that very much in detail. If that's true, if we've been genetically manipulated and altered in some way over eons, generations now, and now we're beginning to find and discover what might be going on. I have to wonder how long it is going to be before there might be more of the physical communication, because the jig is up, basically. Yeah, we know that something's going on for sure now.
Well, I think, you can say why, why do we need to be genetically manipulated? But if you look at what's going on planet-wise, we're not treating our planet too well.
No.
And we don't treat each other too well either. Maybe one of the ways to solve this is to expand man's consciousness. And when you look at the kids, now I've done some statistical research, and I've taken 17 basic functional growth characteristics over a period of 40 years, 1947 to 1987. And we look at them and we can see that there has been a 16.33 to 80% accelerated change in growth in children. Not only that, but the consciousness of children today is expanded. We all, if you're a mother or a father, grandmother,
I'm a mother and now a grandmother, and the difference between my daughter and my granddaughter is phenomenal.
There you go. And I've had the same discussion with mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers all over the world, and it's straight across the board. It doesn't make any difference what country or what economic or social level or whether they watch television or they don't have a television. It doesn't seem to be environmental at all. It's, if you agree that the change is there, which I can statistically prove, then you have to ask, reasons why this is occurring. Is it evolutionary?
Yeah, is it just a natural progression, or is it being prompted in any way?
But we know that evolutionary changes occur over longer periods of time, not 40 years.
Well, and here's I'm looking at my daughter to my granddaughter. That's just one. Yeah.
That's one small period of time. So I think we can fairly well eliminate the possibility of evolution. Then we look, as we said, with environmental factors. And I'm saying that from my experience, it's pretty much equal, because I've had these discussions and we've talked about this in all sorts of societies all over the world. So if you eliminate evolution and environmental factors, then that leaves things like mutation. where, let's say, we're getting bombarded more now with more cosmic rays, more ultraviolet, causing changes. These are considered random mutations, and if it was due to random mutations, we would see other physical characteristic changes, such as inequality of the ear size, or maybe one eye would be one color, maybe another eye would be another color, maybe be changes in the digits of the hands and feet. You might have 6 digits on one foot and 5 on another, but we don't.
But they're random.
You don't see any of these, really.
Yeah.
The amount of abnormal children you see born is about the same as it was 100 years ago. You know, it's the same. So we can eliminate random mutations. Now, so there's really, logically, only 2 things left. One is an act of God. So if you're an extreme theologian, you could say, well, this is God's way and he's changing the human race. Or there's the possibility of specific genetic manipulation. And that's what I'm kind of leaning towards, because why are abductions occurring? And I think I've found or stumbled on to one of the reasons. I think that perhaps the aliens or extraterrestrials or interdimensionals or whoever it is that's responsible for this may be giving us the ability to expand our consciousness and therefore save ourselves and this delicate world in which we live.
I would like to think that, because I do believe that we've many times been on the brink of destroying not only, most of the population on the planet, if not all of it, but certainly messing up the planet itself too. And we're doing it insidiously anyway.
Yes.
And without a big blast, but it's still happening. There's still a lot of cleanup to be done. Now,
there's another aspect of this which also makes me believe that this is true, and that is, no matter how good a scientist you are, whether you're an old scientist, millions of years older than human scientists, and a genetic manipulator, it's still an experiment in my view. And with experiments, you're going to get successes, which seem to be in the largest majority, and you're going to get failures. And I think now, within recent years, we are beginning to see the failures. The kids that are going into schools and shooting up their friends, killing their parents, violence beyond belief, and now you're just starting to hear the media commentators talk about it's if they don't seem to have a conscience. So what's the opposite of an expanded consciousness?
Yeah.
It's a shrunken conscience. So perhaps these kids are the genetic failures. And if that's the case, you really can't blame the kids.
We're not trying to put blame on why they might be doing this, but if it has been going on for as many thousands of years, does it appear to be, if it appears to be moving and expanding our consciousness, at any time they could have probably just come and taken over or done anything with us to have totally destroyed us and taken over our planet. It doesn't appear that that's a threat in any way. I don't
No, it certainly doesn't appear to be an act of malevolence, and it's more like we are the subjects of an experiment which may have started 6,000 years ago, and maybe we are a unique creature in the universe, because the other thing they seem to be interested in is the emotional aspect of the human being. We have 50 billion miles of neural network in our body. And that makes us a very sort of complex neurological creature. So, and besides it, we haven't the slightest idea who we are. We don't seem to realize that we might be a physical shell housing a marvelously spiritual aspect, a soul which may go on forever and ever. those thoughts don't seem to occur to us. But maybe as consciousness expands, maybe as these children, you know, I'm sure you'll...
They turn around and teach us.
Yes, they will. They will turn...
I have that suspicion.
Let me tell you a fascinating thing that I saw not long ago in Southern California, where I'm from. We've had a lot of rain. Went through this rainy
You got
period.
our rain.
We got, and you had nice sunshine up here. So one day when the sun came out and things were real nice again, I saw a group of children in some kind of an enterprise on the sidewalk, maybe 5 to 7 years of age, a whole group of them. So being curious, I walked over and I looked at them, and what they were doing is they were picking up snails and taking them off the sidewalk and putting them into the bushes. So I saw that and I said, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And one little kid volunteered, and he said, "Well, you see here where the puddles are and it's wet on the sidewalk, and then you have these dry areas. If these snails go into the dry areas, they're liable to get dried out in the sun and die. So we have to," he said, "we have to pick them up and put them over here."
Whoa.
Whoa was right, because when I was that age, as a male, you know, we used to do not such nice things.
No, I don't remember the...
So, I mean, that's
just one case in point. And here I've got a little granddaughter that's just a year and a half old. And yet I can ask her and tell her to do things, go get your shoes, you know, when we're dressing her or something. She just is so with it. It's amazing. We just have to go, what
there
next?
You go. Sure. There are kids today that at 2 months of old are verbalizing, and they are attempting to verbalize in an intelligent way. If you could speak the language which they're attempting to speak.
She's been communicating, you know, with me. I make every effort to see her once a month, you know, since she's been born. And we have our own little language.
Yeah, there's in fact there's a book out, I don't remember the title, but it tells the parents how to communicate with sign language to the baby. And that the baby will respond by responding to your sign language.
Well, because I'm a little different in the way I'm approaching her than her own mother, you know, who's in the daily caretaking situation, she and I seem to have developed this way of communicating already. And even my own daughter looks and goes, "What is going on between you two?" And I said, "Well, that's just us."
Well, I'm so glad you noticed it, because that is the way that things are happening today.
Well, let's leave on this upbeat then, because, you know, taking out implants on people sounds like a horrific thing at some point, but it doesn't seem to be a terrible situation, even for the people that are having it done. And I guess that's good news. We don't want to be scared, witless. You know, we don't want to panic people about intervention and interaction with aliens. I've been working for years trying to explore the whole subject. I appreciate the work you're doing in that area too.
Well, thank you.
You're going after the facts.
I have to mention that I have 2 books and a video out on the subject.
And we'll show that on our credits and give the titles.
So the more that we talk about this, and the more literature is given off to the general public who may not have this knowledge, the more of us will get educated.
And the dear lady that helps me on Journey, I will make sure you have a chance to see what might be going on with her.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes. And that's how you get to know these people, right?
That's
mostly word of mouth, right?
That's correct. Yes, word of mouth.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate this time.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for joining us on this journey.